Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Lewis Speaks 2023, and today I'm going to ask you all a question. Who are you beyond your grief? Who is the person waiting at the other end of your grief? I realize that a lot of us get so stuck in grief that we forget about the people that we are. For me, the person that I am beyond my grief is confident, self assured, loving, kind, determined. That's the person that I am. But in the midst of grief, what ends up happening is that you lose sight of that person. You become deeply entrenched in sadness, despair, hopelessness, depression, and so you lose sight of that person that you are. I remember a time when I was in a very toxic relationship, and when that relationship ended, I was a mess. I was at my job, basically just hurt, heartbroken, crying at my desk, hurting over somebody who wasn't even worth my time or energy, you know? And I remember that experience because as a product of my grief, I was reckless, I was angry, I went through all the stages, you know? Denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and then finally acceptance. I accepted the fact that I contributed a lot to my experience by not setting appropriate boundaries, you know? And so I also realized that who am I? Who am I beyond that toxic ex? Who are you beyond that toxic job? Beyond those toxic friends? Who are you? Who are you beyond your grief? At the end of your grief, the person that's waiting for you is the person that is healed. That healed person comes back stronger. That healed person comes back with a lot of life lessons. That healed person will no longer tolerate just disrespect. They'll no longer tolerate abuse. They'll no longer tolerate anything that runs contrary and that's not in alignment with the person that they know that they are. When you know that you're confident, when you know that you are determined, when you know that you are self-assured, when you know that you are self-directed, when you know that you are all these things, you don't get stuck in the throes of grief. You may basically just visit, but you also realize that at the end of this experience, and I use that word intentionally, experience, because experience implies temporary. It's an experience. At the end of that experience, you become a very knowledgeable person. You pick up new tools that help you deal with a lot of different scenarios. You definitely have a lot of insight. And so I'm encouraging everybody now, be the person who is beyond your grief. Even in the throes of grief, be that person. Force yourself to be that person who is at the opposite end of the grief. Ask yourself, who is that person? That person is joyful. That person is happy. That person is hopeful. Be that person. Rehearse that person, because sometimes you're not going to wake up feeling like that person. You're going to wake up feeling like a hollow, empty shell of your former self. You're going to feel like a hollow shell of your former self. And so you have to intentionally and deliberately and willfully will yourself to be that person. Rehearse that person. Rehearse that happy person, that smiling person, that hopeful person, that motivated person. You have to. And before you know it, what you start to realize is that you are that person. You know? What is the saying? Form follows function. You know? We build, I think it was one of the people, either Woodrow Wilson, somebody, they said, we build our institutions and then our institutions build us. So in other words, We build our happiness, and then our happiness becomes us. We become happy. We build and we work our happiness. We work ourselves into our happiness. Because that's what you have to do sometimes. You have to work yourself into your happiness. You don't always feel it. You don't always feel everything you know. You don't always feel everything you want to feel. Sometimes you have to work feeling, work yourself into your feelings. You have to work yourself into your feelings. You have to rehearse that positive self-talk, looking at yourself in the mirror, telling yourself your good qualities, affirming yourself, being proud of yourself, connecting with yourself. You have to do that. That is essential. That's essential in being the person beyond your grief. How to be the person beyond your grief. You have to think about that. How can I be this person? Well, for one, you have to rehearse that person. That person is not ready-made. That person is not just, it's not always a natural occurrence. Sometimes you have to work yourself into that person, into being that person. And it's hard. It's difficult. But it's worth it because grief will tell you what you are not. Grief mind will tell you what you are not. It will be very destructive. It'll offer destructive messages. It'll encourage you to be reckless. And in the moment, recklessness feels good. It feels satisfying. It feels edifying. Because that's instant gratification. But over time, that recklessness, you begin to feel empty. You realize that you're destroying yourself over a person or a situation that no longer exists or that no longer even cares. You're hurting and throwing your very good life away for someone or something that doesn't give a damn about you. And so what ends up happening is that you wake up and you realize that you are the love that you seek. You have always been the love that you seek. But you sought out other love to validate you. And that's why childhood, it sets up the veil. It sets up the veil because we always have someone outside of us, loving us, nurturing us. And I think that we have that as a way to teach us how to love ourselves. Someone loves us first. They teach us how to love ourselves. They teach us that we're lovable, and we carry the torch from there. But I think we need to learn in childhood how to be the love that we seek, how to be the love that we need, how to be that love for ourselves, Because waiting on someone else, outside sources, to give you that, you'll always be in a state of flux. So the thing is, you have to remember the love inside. You have to remember that you are a good person beyond the grief. The grief will lie to you. It will tell you so many fallacies, It'll distort your thinking. But you have to know, beyond knowing, who you are beyond the grief. And so I encourage everybody out there to really sit with yourselves. Remember who you are before the grief starts to come around you. Remember that you have very good love inside of you. You are already loved. No one else could come along and love you like you love you. You have got to love you so hard and so deep that nobody can separate you from yourself. Oftentimes we are separated from ourselves. We let other people tell us that we are not lovable, that we are unworthy. But those are lies. Those are distortions that they use to control us. They're also projecting their own insecurities, their own fears, their own inadequacies onto our very good life. Reject the projections. Reject those projections. You are better than that. Who are you beyond your grief? This is Lewis. Lewis Speaks 2023. Wishing everybody a wonderful, wonderful 2023. Peace, y'all.